Tornadin. She has been here not even a year yet, as well as Billy Weaver in the back. And on the far left, our administrative assistant that I share with community development, Kim Garrison. She hasn't been here very long either. And in the middle there is Debbie Coons, and she's been here a little less than 3 years. And I just want you to know that they have produced for you a squeaky clean audit, a fantastic, beautiful 2013 CAFR, and I would like to show you what high performance looks like. This is last year's. This is what it looks like this year. And I just want you to know that in addition to doing their daily duties, they did all of these things and assisted with grinding budget sausage, and assisted with grinding budget sausage, and assisted with the funding capacity study you'll see next week. And I just wanted to give a moment to recognize them.
Thank you.
So in addition to that, I want to take just 1 second. The mayor mentioned earlier this year that we got the 2012 award. And because now GFOA expects us to continue high performance, it's no longer a crummy wooden plaque. Now we have marble with spaces for future medallions. So I would like to give that to you because they're expecting us to continue. So with that,
I will look at this, but it's going to show back up on your wall before,
well, it should.
before too long.
You can shine it for a moment.
But, yeah.
So, with that, I will stop talking, but I did want to praise my staff openly and publicly because they are high performance. And with that, I will introduce Mike Lowry, who is the Vice President of Assurance with Allen Gibbs and Hulick, and he can tell you, again, in a very professional way, how wonderful we are.
Thank you, Laura.
Good evening, Mike Lowry with Allen Gibbs and Hulick. We were engaged to audit the comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit under the OMB A133 Act. And again, I would just like to second what Laura said. The staff, this is our second year with this engagement, and the staff is always very well prepared for us. The audit is a huge undertaking. It takes a lot of work in addition to what their daily responsibilities are. And they're always very well prepared, which makes our job easier. So, you should have in front of you a report called Required Communications. Audit standards require that we communicate to the governing body certain matters related to the audit. I won't go over the entire document, but I will hit some of the highlights. In the current year, the city did adopt a new accounting policy, actually two, GASB 61, GASB Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which the city is required to follow those accounting standards. GASB 61 really just tweaked a previous GASB, GASB 14 and GASB 34 related to component units. The city does have a component unit in their financial statements, that being the airport. It didn't change anything. They did an evaluation under the new standards and really had no impact. The airport stayed a component unit. The biggest impact was the implementation of GASB 65. Somewhere along the line, the GASB decided that the balance sheet needed to have 5 sections rather than just an asset, liability, and equity. It now has 2 sections added in called deferred inflows and deferred outflows. What that means for the city is 2 types of transactions, or mainly 2 types of transactions: property taxes and the unamortized portion of deferred refundings got broken out from either the asset section or to the liability section and put into a new section on the balance sheet called deferred inflows or deferred outflows. So it's really just a display issue. There are a few accounting estimates in your financial statements. Not all financial statements have hard and fast numbers. For the city, those estimates include OPEB. The city does engage an outside actuary to help develop the other post-employment benefit plan. We do review that report from the actuaries. We review the entries that are made based off that report, and we concur with that estimate as well. The other, I think that's really it there. There were a few uncorrected misstatements I use the word uncorrected misstatements. That's really a bad term. What that is really is towards the end of the audit, you may run across some transactions that are not material, and it's really not worth busting open the financial statements and recording them, and in reality, they actually get recorded in the new year anyway. So we concurred with management that we didn't need to make those. You do have a list of those uncorrected misstatements that are attached to your report. There were a few audit adjustments to the financial statements during our audit. Nothing that I would consider out of the ordinary. The biggest audit adjustment came from the city had been accounting for some assets that actually belong to the airport. So in an effort to get all of that cleaned up and get those assets moved off the city's books and onto the airport's books, we had to post some prior period adjustments to get that corrected. So definitely the correct treatment of that. So in addition, you know, when we embark on an audit, there's 3 goals to every audit. Did the city comply with all laws and regulations? Were there internal controls in place, but more importantly, did they work? And do the financial statements accurately reflect the books and records? And I'm glad to report the answer to all those questions is yes, and as Laura mentioned, that resulted in an unmodified opinion. So that's the financial statement audit. I'll just take a few minutes and talk about the single audit piece. We did audit, the city receives a grant that qualifies or triggers the city to have a single audit, and that's the capitalization grant for clean water related to the project with Edgerton. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. We did audit that last year. I'm happy to report this year there were no findings. Last year there were 2 findings, and we are required to follow up on those findings because, as you know, when you have a finding, the city implements an action plan to tell the federal government how they're going to resolve those issues. We are required to follow up and make sure that the city does do what they said they were going to do, and in both those cases they did. Last year there was a finding related to compliance and oversight, and that was really related to the fact that it was a new grant, and the city was doing it in collaboration with Edgerton, and so things just got a little muddled there, but there was oversight this year, and then there was also a finding last year related to financial reporting. The city has since found out that that was really the state's responsibility and not the city's responsibility. With that, that's all I have, and unless you have questions.
Anyone have questions for Mike?
All right.
Now, when it's so squeaky clean, we don't. Thank you, Mike. Laura, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just wanted to tell you that I do have copies of the new CAFR for all of you, so
Thank you very much.
I will pass them out at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Okay. The last item, and actually, I think we're going to do this one from the dais. Jeff, if you don't mind, because it is a proclamation for Parks and Rec Month. They're so important, they get a whole month. But since 1985, July has been celebrated as the nation's official park and recreation month. This year's theme is Out is In, making 2014 the year people go outside, change their outlook, and get involved in their community through parks and recreation. That being the case, we've got a proclamation. Whereas park and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Gardner, Kansas, and whereas in 1985 the U.S. House of Representatives designated July as National Park and Recreation Month, and whereas our park and recreation facilities, programs, and events are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of the community and region, and whereas park and recreation programs build healthy and active communities, aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services, for those who are mentally or physically disabled and improve mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas Park and Recreation